How's it going, everybody? In today's video, I'm going to walk you through the process of setting up a swap table in Tableau. This is something that I recommend for a lot of newer users of Tableau to get them used to the interface of being able to slice and dice and filter. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the process of actually setting up one of these dynamic swap tables. And just to show you how it works, we have these three dimensions here that I've configured to talk to parameters. And based on what value I select within the parameter, it calls a different dimension to be displayed within our table. So in this example, we have region in the first column, state in the second, and city in the third. We also have the ability to drill up and down. So if we only wanted to see data at the regional level, we can quickly drill up or drill back down. And we can also change our lens from a geographical to a product focused, so category, subcategory, and product name. And it's that easy. All the measures will dynamically update based on what dimension values we're showing here on the left-hand side. And you also have the ability to hide various dimensions by just showing an empty string. You can also toggle any of your measures on or off. And this is really great because it allows the end user just unlimited flexibility of toggling and creating their perfect slice and dice table based on how it's configured. And you can include any number of dimensions that you'd like to, as long as they're part of your data set, and add those to your parameters, and you are good to go. So now let's go ahead and create this swap table. If you wouldn't mind just liking this video and subscribing, really appreciate it, help out the channel. Let's do this. All right, so to get started, the first thing we need to do is obviously connect to a data set. And in this example, I'll be using the sample Superstore Tableau default data source. And now we have to create dynamic dimensions that will then talk to our parameters that will allow us to dynamically select whatever dimensions we want the end user to be able to display at a given time on their table. So to get started, let's first create a parameter. So come up to the little drop down here, choose create parameter, and I'm going to call this a-swap. This is going to signify this is technically the A column, and then the next one will be the B column, and the C column, and so on. And you're obviously welcome to create as many of these as you'd like to, but in this example, I'm just going to be creating three swappable dimensions that will then talk to their own parameters. So once it's named, change the data type to string, choose allowable values list, and here we'll be inputting all the dimensions we want to provide the end user with the ability to toggle through. So my thought process was I would group together a couple of these dimensions. So for example, we have our geographical dimensions, which encapsulate where the customer lives. We have the product dimensions, which talk to what kind of product the customer ordered. And finally, who is this customer and what ship mode do they choose to have their product delivered? So I'm just going to go through region, state, and you can see on the right hand side here, it just gets displayed automatically, and city. Then I'll jump over to the category, subcategory, and product name. And it's best practice to actually put these values in the same order that a user would likely want to analyze from, so the highest level down to the lowest level. So we have our geographical, our product dimensions, and now we'll input the customer name and the ship mode that the customer chose. And you'll notice that the display as column automatically populates. So this is what the user will see on the dashboard when they start flipping through the parameter values. So let's leave everything as it currently stands. We'll hit OK. So now that we have our parameter set up, the next step is to create a calculated field that can then access the value that's stored inside this parameter. So go up to Analysis, Create Calculated Field, and I'll call this dim A. So dimension A. And now I'll type out case A dash swap. So we're saying reference this parameter using this case statement. And when A dash swap has the string value region, then pull in the region dimension. When our A swap parameter has the value state, then pull in the state dimension. All right, I'm just going to fast forward as I type these out. Okay, so I've included all the dimensions that I would like to store inside of this calc field that we're going to use to swap through using our parameter. You're more than welcome to add additional values here, but obviously make sure that you have those values also added into your parameter. Otherwise, dimension A can't talk to A-swap. So it's important that you have everything spelled exactly the same, the exact same type case as you currently have within your parameter. So let me just hit OK after I do a quick spell check. Looks good. And you'll notice that when I add show parameter here, it's going to pull in all of those values that we have right here inside of our parameter values. So I can add another dummy value here, just call it dummy, and this won't connect to anything at all, but you'll see when I hit OK, dummy is now here at the bottom. And when I go to my calculated field, which is called dim A, edit, nothing happens when dummy is selected because it's going to look for dummy in this field, and obviously this field does not have dummy in it. Therefore, it's just a dummy value, if you will. One thing to keep in mind is spelling is paramount, like I mentioned. So if for any reason your parameter is not talking to your dimension, make sure that you are spelling these values here exactly the same in this left-hand side of the equation. And the order doesn't matter of this code here. As long as the dimensions exist in your parameter, as well as here, you're good to go. So I'm going to hit OK. Just going to take out that dummy value that I added just for consistency's sake. All right. So let's see how this works. I'm going to add in the dim A onto my row shelf. And we could see that it's currently pulling the region. So central, east, south, and west. Let's toggle the state. Just like that, Tableau can dynamically swap various dimensions based on what we select with our parameter value. So this is all great, but the purpose of this is to create a really dynamic experience for our end users. So let's go ahead and create additional dimensions for even more swappability. So let's go ahead and duplicate our parameter, A-swap, duplicate. I'm going to rename this B-swap, and I'll duplicate that one, and I'll call it C-swap. Okay, so now that we have all three of our parameters set up and good to go, we have to give it something to talk to. So B and C are currently just sitting out there, disconnected from the world. I'll add them to our display so we can just see what they're currently showing as their values that are selected. So dim A is good to go. Now let's duplicate dim A, and we'll create a dim B. And we'll drag that out to our canvas. And watch what happens here. So as I swap through, nothing's changing for this dimension B. And that's because we have yet to update the code within this calculated field to point to B-swap. Because we just duplicated the field, it's still pointing to A-swap. So let's edit the code in dim B, and we'll update this to point to the proper parameter, B-swap. And now you'll see that it's functioning as expected. We'll go ahead and just duplicate dim B, We'll call it dim C. And once again, making sure that we have updated to point to the proper parameter. All right, so all three appear to be functioning as expected. The next step is to give these values something to analyze against. Currently, we have no measures being displayed here. So let's go ahead and take measure names. And if you can't find it within your pane here, just type in measure. And then drag out measure names onto the column shelf. And drag measure values onto the text mark. Right-click on measure names, show filter. And now we have the ability to toggle various measures on and off as well. So this really gives the end user unlimited flexibility of how they want to slice and dice their data up to 3 dimensions deep. Let's take it one step further. Let's also provide the end user the ability to drill up and down across these various dimensions. In order to do that, let's create a hierarchy. So let's just grab dimension C and drop it on dimension A. And we'll call this dynamic dimensions. Okay. Well, don't forget about dimension B. Ensure they're in the right order for the hierarchy, A, B, and C. And now, watch the measures on the right-hand side here. As we start to drill from C to B and from B to A, you'll see that everything gets aggregated at the proper level of detail based on the dimensions that we have currently selected using our parameters. And if we can drill back down, we can make a location-based worksheet by using a region, state, and city. Region, state, city. Or we could flip it on its head and look at it from a product lens. Category, subcategory, and product name. And that's how easy it is to create a swap table in Tableau. And if you want to put this onto a dashboard, it's quite simple. Open up a new dashboard. I'll just change this to be my favorite A4 landscape. I'll drag out a horizontal container. Drop sheet 1. Selecting this container, going to layout, changing the background to a nice light gray. Let's move this all the way over. Okay, so we can see that the parameters have automatically shown up as well as our measure filter. And that's because we've already had them displayed on our sheet here. If for any reason they're not showing up, just go to your dashboard, make sure your sheet is highlighted, click on the little drop down for more options. Parameters, make sure A, B, and C are checked, and as well as whatever filters you'd like to include. I'll do fit with. And one other thing I'd like to do here is actually label based on what parameters are being selected. So you don't have to keep looking over here on the right-hand side and assess what's currently being selected with our parameters. So double click on your sheet 1. We'll change our name. Let's center this text. We'll delete what's currently in there and do insert, parameter A-swap, space, dash, space, parameter B swap, space dash space, parameter C swap. Apply. So now it's currently showing us how we're analyzing this data with dimension A, B, and C. As we toggle what we're looking at, that title also dynamically updates for you. So you can play around with the orientation of this and overall formatting, but as you can see, that's how it pulls the values from our parameters and stores them up here into our title. If for any reason you don't want anything to show up in your parameter, it's as simple as creating an empty string. So currently we have to have a value selected for dimension C. Let's go back into our sheet. Let's edit dimension C. We'll create a brand new line that says when, space, then, blank space. Apply, OK. We'll go to our C-swap parameter, which talks to that field, and we'll create just a space. We'll click off. We can see this row contains nothing but just a space. Let's drag it up all the way to the top there. Hit OK. Let's go back to our dashboard. And now when we select just this blank space here, it'll roll up all that data based on the next level up in the hierarchy. It allows for a bit cleaner of an output. So if you don't want to show your dimension A, B, and C here, you can just right click and do hide field labels for rows. And we can roll up one level. So now if you really only want to look at this data by two different dimensions, you have the ability to do so and ignore the third dimension. But if you wanted to get one level deeper, you would then access your C-swap, choose what you want to analyze by, and just like that, it's back into your view. So you can go ahead and do the same thing with both B-swap and A-swap with adding that empty string in there. And as you can see, that's how it does behave once it is filtered within your table. One more thing you may want to add into your worksheet would be grand totals. In order to do that, make sure your sheet is selected. Come up to the analysis dropdown, totals, show column grand totals. And by default, they're going to show up at the bottom of your worksheet. But as you can see, as we begin to expand the sheet outward, the totals get pushed all the way down to the bottom, and they're hard to see at first glance. So I would recommend actually putting these grand totals at the top of your sheet. To do that, analysis, totals, column totals to top. That's going to throw them right at the top of the sheet. And I also like to just change the orientation of this so it's a bit closer to the actual measure values. So I'm going to take the grand totals, right click, format, down here where it says grand totals, I'll change this to just say totals, and I'll right align that. So I would definitely recommend including those. It's completely up to you whether or not you want to show the overall totals. Well, I'll just take them off for now, but the option is there for you. So that is a swap table in Tableau. I find these incredibly useful for folks that are just getting used to the Tableau interface. They might not be completely comfortable with letting go of pivot tables in Excel, and this really gives them the flexibility of diving in, slicing and dicing their data, and viewing the raw numbers. Perhaps they're not yet ready for full-blown visualization of data with bar charts, area charts, all that good stuff, but this gives them the ability to access their data they are used to seeing in tools like Excel, and just gets them comfortable with the interface and really unlocks the power of what is possible when using Tableau. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome Tableau content. I'll see you guys in the next one.